Hello students, I hope you are all doing well and hanging in there as we're moving into the midway point of the semester. I just wanted to take a moment and post a video announcement to talk through what's happened in Oklahoma this month in February to this young non-binary student, Benedict. Benedict, who you can see here on the screen, was 16 years old, and on October 7th, they were at school in Oklahoma, and they had gone into a bathroom with a friend. There were 3 other girls in the bathroom who were making fun of Nex and their friend. Nex defended themselves by pouring some water on the girls. The girls then turned around and attacked Nex and beat Nex very severely. Nex hit their head on the tile very hard, in a very extreme way. They blacked out at one point during the attack because of how serious it was. Surveillance videos at the school show that Nex was able to leave the bathroom with a school official to go to the nurse's office. When they arrived at the nurse's office, the school nurse said that they should go to the hospital for further testing and examinations. Nex did go to the hospital. They were released that day. They went home. Stayed at home that night, and the next day they collapsed while they were walking and were rushed back to the hospital when they were pronounced dead upon arrival. And so this is a deep tragedy. Our LGBTQIA+ communities are in deep mourning right now. You know, it's always a shock when somebody, especially so young, is killed in such a violent manner. And it's really sad because we know that trans people have average lifespans of about 36 years of age compared to cis folks whose average lifespan is, around 80 years of age. And part of the reason for this is due to the extreme violence that trans communities face. It's even higher among trans communities of color, and we really need to be thinking about just how significant gender is when it comes to shaping the social order of our society, right? And so in Oklahoma, it's pretty significant because there were several anti-trans bills that shape our understanding of transgender people and transgender rights in the state of Oklahoma. So, for example, one of the bills that is law in Oklahoma states that trans people can only use, that all people can only use the bathroom that matches the gender they were assigned at birth. And so if you're a trans woman and you are assigned male at birth, you can only use male bathrooms, even though you identify as a trans woman, right? And would be more comfortable in the woman's bathroom. Potentially more comfortable in the women's bathroom, at least. Right now, the state of Oklahoma is also considering changing it so that gender-neutral designations can't be included on birth certificates. And another one that may require public schools to state that gender is an immutable biological trait, and bar people from using names or pronouns that differ than those on their birth certificates. So all of this legislation, right, really works to delegitimize the existence of trans people, to dehumanize trans people, and to kind of shape the public imaginary that suggests that violence against trans people is somehow okay. And we can see this not just with, we can look back historically at all of this as well, right? We can see how language was used to dehumanize Black people and enslaved people to justify their enslavement and exploitation. We can see how language has been used to delegitimize womanhood for cis women, and used as justification to keep women out of the public sphere, which we'll be talking about this week. Right, and so language does play a really important role in how we understand our social world. Some of the critics of the bills that have been passed in Florida point to some of the talking points by the school superintendent, Ryan Walters. Again, this is in Oklahoma, right? And he's been really staunch in his anti-trans rhetoric. And he told the, hold on, let me look at this. What did it say? He told, yes, the New York Times, that he doesn't believe non-binary or transgender people even exist, right? He stated that you always treat individuals with dignity or respect, but because they're made in God's image, Mr. Walters said, but that doesn't change the truth. And so on the one hand, he's saying, hey, everybody should be respected. But on the other hand, he's saying, hey, if I don't believe trans people exist, then that's the truth, and therefore they don't exist, right? And so it really creates this kind of confusing dialogue, right? Where it's like, are we supposed to be respectful? Are you telling people to be respectful? But then you're also saying folks don't exist. This seems like what we might call doublespeak, speaking back to George Orwell, actually. But, right, it really provides this space for us to not see trans people as real people, and that the kind of hostile environment that creates around trans identity and non-binary identities. And so in this moment, we want to give space to people to mourn however they need to, of course. Take care of yourselves, take care of your communities, do what you need to do to make sure that, you're okay. Which is difficult to say the least, right? These are heavy times. It's really difficult to take care of ourselves and each other. But what we know too is that in order to create change, we need to care for each other. Care is essential as we move through these crises, and what it might look like to shape a more just future for trans people, for non-binary people, for all people. And how does that future how does that future change when we center the needs of the most marginalized, right? So what I wanted to do today was offer you a couple of different tools to check out. So these are all going to be on the announcement, linked in the announcement for you. And so here you can see this is the 2024 Anti-Trans Bill Tracker. And so what this does is it tracks state legislation for bills that are anti-trans in nature. So you can see just in this year alone, there's already been 496 bills proposed in 41 states. 3 have passed, 485 are active, which means they're moving through their various political and legal processes right now, and 8 have failed. And so you can click on any of these and kind of see what the anti-trans legislation is going on in each of these states. But of course, we can look to Arizona, and there are significant bills being proposed in the state of Arizona right now. Some of the ones they're very similar to that has been proposed in Oklahoma, similar to ones that have already been passed in Florida. And the reason that they're similar is because these bills come out of an organization called the American Legislative Exchange Council, also known as ALEC. ALEC is an organization that brings together conservative lawmakers with business owners to shape legislation that they'd like to see passed at the state level, right? And very specifically, this is the state level. They're not really working too much, to my knowledge, at least at the federal level. They're trying to do this individual state by individual state. And so what they do is that they go in and they create legislation. They see if it passes in a particular state. If it does pass, then they'll use that legislation to be proposed in other states as well. We saw this with Arizona's SB 1070, the Show Me Your Papers law, which enabled police officers to ask anybody they thought was in this country illegally or without documentation to show their papers. This, of course, then was used to target Latinx communities very specifically. And so we see that this legislation is not just one piece, right? It's part of a broader plan, right, to shape the experiences of gender, to shape the experiences of, to shape the social order of the United States broadly. And so we can see here there's AZ SB 1166, which seeks to require that school officials notify parents if a student is using a different name or different pronouns than the one that appears on their birth certificate. This can be particularly dangerous for students, especially if they're coming from families where they're not able to be open and out about their gender experiences, their gender identity, their sexuality. At home. It kind of creates a really dangerous situation. Also, we know that gender affirming language is really essential for the mental health of trans students. And so this creates another situation in which trans students' mental health is put at risk as well. We also see this one, AZ-SB 1005. This means that when it says it's engrossed, this means that it's been introduced, it's been brought to the state legislature floor to be discussed, and now it's being sent back into committee to be amended, where the amendments will happen, and then it will go back to the floor to be discussed again. And so this one in particular bars public entities, and so we're really looking at like public schools, colleges, and universities from requiring any kind of diversity, equity, or inclusion training, to bar the teaching of any classes that teach critical race theory, critical gender theory, queer theory, that talk about experiences of transgender people. The bill actually calls it transgenderism, which is a derogatory term that so associates being transgender with having a mental illness, which is not true. It's not the same thing at all. Right, and so this bill would have really significant impacts on the classes that are able to be taught at the schools, and how schools can address things like racism, transphobia, so on and so forth on campus. There's another one, let me see if I can find it. Yes, Arizona SB 1182, which would be the same thing that happened in Florida. It bans people from using the bathroom that corresponds with their gender identity. It forces people to use the bathroom based on their assigned gender at birth. Right, and so you can see there's a bunch here. I'm not going to go through all of them. You're welcome to look through any of them, of course, right? But one of the things that we can do in this moment is call our state legislators and urge them to and let them know how we feel about these particular bills and what we think they should do in terms of voting on these bills. Because state legislators rely on public votes in order to remain in power and to stay in office, letting them know what we think can be a really useful tool for shaping how they'll vote on these particular bills. And so this is going to be linked in the announcement for you as well. It's how do I find or contact my legislator. If you happen to already know who your legislator is, you can just click here and you'll be able to look up their contact information. If you're like most of us and don't know who your state legislator is, you want to click right here. And it's going to take you to a map where you'll locate the district that you are in. So Estrella Mountain is in Avondale, so we'll just do Avondale, Arizona. And we'll see that Avondale, Arizona is District 22. Okay, so now I can go back to find my state legislator. I can click here. And it's going to take me to a list of all the state legislators in Arizona. This is for the House of Representatives, and this is for our Senate members, right? So if we look at 22, here it is. Lupe Contreras is our House representative, representative, excuse me. And then if we go to our senators, we can find Eva Diaz is our senator for the city of Avondale in District 22. And then you'll see you can email them, you can call them. I suggest doing both. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. All that you have to do, or, call and say, hey, my name is Justine Hecht. I'm a constituent in District 22. I understand that there are several anti-trans legislations going through our state legislature right now. I urge you to vote this way on these particular bills, right? And you can say a little bit about why, anti-trans legislation harms trans youth, anti-trans legislation leads to violence against trans communities, whatever kind of reason stands out to you, or, you could say all of them, whatever you need to do, right? It can be a really straightforward process. 9 times out of 10, you're not actually going to talk to a person, you're going to leave a message. And if you email, you'll probably get an automated response is usually what happens. But just because you're leaving a message or you get an automated response, that doesn't mean that there's not power in numbers, right? And so I really encourage you, to take some time and read through some of these bills, and read through, how these bills actually impact trans people's lives. And take some time to be an engaged member of our society, right? And encourage your representatives who are representing you to vote in a way that you actually feel represents your truth, your experiences, so on and so forth. Okay, so that's what I've got for you all. Take good care of each other. Check in on your LGBTQIA plus community members. You know, make sure everybody's doing okay. We're in the fight together, and you know, we'll keep going. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.